It is said to be the most puzzling object that has ever been seen, and it's
Mm.
approaching our solar system. It's called 3I Atlas, and it's not just another comet. There's been various reports out there on different observations, both from NASA and from Harvard, that are talking about this object that is coming towards us. And here to break it all down is Patricia. Thanks so much for joining us again, Patricia.
Thank you. Yep, I'm here with you to talk about this 3i Atlas. It's very interesting.
And we're also going to be talking about the prophetic implications as well related to this comet, as we know that there has been a great comet or a asteroid prophesied related to the warning or the great sign from heaven. So before we start, I wanted to show this image. This is one of the latest images that I found of this so-called comet, but it doesn't have the characteristics of a traditional comet. Can you tell us a little bit more about this comet and why people are so interested in it?
So the name 3i Atlas, first that lets us know what it's named after. Namely, it's the third known interstellar object ever captured by our space equipment. And there were two other objects that were detected. One was in 2017 and the other in 2019. Both of them interstellar objects as well. And so what is unique about this object is right now NASA's calling it a comet, but it doesn't totally have all the qualities of a comet. So we have some kind of object coming from out of our solar system into our solar system, and it's the third only known one that we know of.
So
And
can you tell us, just before we go into more detail, what does interstellar mean?
so interstellar means that has come between star areas. And so we are in the solar system. All of our planets revolve in an elliptical manner around the sun, and the sun is our star. The sun is our star.
Right.
And so there are other solar systems in the galaxy where there are other stars. I mean, we can look up in the sky and see that there are millions of stars. Um, and scientists don't know how big the universe is, and they don't know whether there are other, similar solar systems with planets. And this
Mm.
is an object that has come from a star,
Right.
and they have traced it back to Sagittarius. It's coming from that region, and it's coming from that region from, depending on how you look at it, from a very long time ago,
Mm.
and now coming into our solar system as a very unknown object as to what it's
And
made out of.
just for perspective, this is what we're looking at is our galaxy, right? The Milky Way galaxy.
Yes.
Okay, so it is actually from the Milky Way, but there's millions of stars within the Milky Way, correct?
Yes.
Right. Okay. So it's coming from outside of the solar system, but within the Milky Way galaxy. And here we have this is the solar system.
Yeah, this is our solar system. And I thought one thing interesting to note, it's very fascinating to me that all the planets in our solar system travel basically on the same plane, which is so strange. And there's scientific reasons for that. But basically, they're
Mhm.
on that same plane with very minute differences, all revolving around the Earth, unless you're around the sun. Sorry, unless you're an Earth centrist, and maybe you think it goes the other way.
Mm.
But I mean, I guess you could argue that motion is relative, but
So this coming comet it's different. It's not revolving around our sun. It's coming from out of the solar system into our solar system. So it's going to come and rotate. It's going to go around the sun, but it's not going to continue revolving around the sun. Correct? Or am I incorrect?
correct. So normally when we have a comet come from within our own solar system, they come just from the very outside. Outside the planets, there's kind of a gray area. If you go one more slide,
Yep.
one more slide.
Uh,
There it
this
is.
one. This one. Yep.
So there is there's these ice particles that are on the very outside that kind of sit out there and they go in orbit and they are in the orbit. And so when they enter into let's say they come into like past Jupiter, planet X, and they start to go around the sun, they are pulled in by the gravity of the sun and they will orbit in that same elliptical motion. And then they can get
Right. Yep.
closer to the Earth, but it travels along that path.
Mm,
Whereas
mm,
this object is much larger and it's much faster, and that's the only reason why it can even enter into our solar system is because it's quite large and going quite fast, because
right.
it's gonna go through those forces, right, and be
Hmm.
able to travel in and out of our solar system relatively quickly within,
Wow.
4 or 5 months.
So the size, NASA's reported it to be 12 kilometers squared or miles squared. I'm not sure, and the Harvard research have said it's much larger, 12 miles squared.
Yeah, I have it here that NASA is saying that it's, 12 miles long,
No, not
and
squared. No, I'm wrong then. Yeah.
12 miles long, and that the Harvard professor is saying that it's at least 20 miles long.
Hmm. And is that much bigger than regular comets?
That's much, much bigger than regular comets, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And, going much faster. So the speed of this is 130,000 miles per hour.
And we're going to show a short video soon that shows how fast it's actually going. And some of the observations that were made is that it doesn't have the traditional tail of a comet, and it also has a glow at the front of it. And we we showed this post earlier, but it talks about some anomalies
And one thing
related
to note
to, yeah,
And one thing
go
to
on.
note there too is that since the Hubble telescope has been measuring or looking for these interstellar objects, it had found two others before this, um, one in 2017 and one in 2019. And this is the third object, and this object is very, very different. It's much, much
Mm,
larger, and we're going to see some of the qualities that it has that is
mm.
also unlike the other two interstellar objects that we've been able to detect and measure.
So here it says, this is one of the top posts here on X. It talks about, posted by Matt Beal. He says that it is releasing 70 kilograms of CO2 every second, but not carbon monoxide and no water. So usually comets have a lot of water on them. That's correct. There's water on comets usually.
Yes, because comets are usually made out of a large part of comets are made out of ice, and so when you have the comet or you have an interstellar object that is made out of ice,
Mm.
or a large part of ice, as it enters into the solar system, getting closer to the sun, it begins to melt, and so then it lets off gas, in the form of H2O.
So it says that's unheard of. Every comet in recorded history that produced CO2 also showed other gases. This doesn't. Why? Nobody knows. No water coma. Comets typically display water vapor and a classic water-based coma. For Atlas, nothing. No evidence of water dominance. No standard tail. Just CO2 defying every expectation. The size is shocking. Newer estimates suggest a nucleus of effective radius that could reach tens of kilometers across. On the scale of 1 to 87, of the moon's
Mhm,
diameter.
mhm.
So if it does hit, and they're saying that we're gonna look at the trajectory that it's gonna take, um, and they're saying that it might possibly hit um, one of the moons of Mars. That's what some people are saying here. This is the image that I'm talking
Interesting.
about. Have you heard that as well? That it could possibly hit a moon of Mars?
I read that it was gonna become, very, very, very close, on its way out when it
On its way
comes
out.
out the other side of the sun,
Right.
um,
Okay.
but then I think the fraction I saw was 1/20th of an astronomic unit.
And which is how far is that
So
from
1
the moon?
astronomic unit is the distance from the planet Earth to the sun.
Okay, so it's small fraction of that, so it will be
Yeah, very
close. Be
close.
close.
And
Yeah.
I mean, considering that right now, it's not sure, at least I'm not sure that NASA's got the right measurements on the thing. Um, if you look back to that citation you had, that person was talking about the two telescopes, the second telescope. Um, can you, there you go,
Yeah.
Sphere X. So Sphere X is a special type of telescope that is a spectrometer.
Mhm.
And so what it's able to do is able to send signals towards the thing and then split it with a light source in, and a light goes through it, kind of like a to test what type of substance the thing is made of.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've ever did that in chemistry, where you're looking at a spectrometer
Yes.
and the
Yeah.
different colors that, like, copper will make like a
Sure.
bluish green color. Um, so they're able to send those signals to this, and they have. Um, and they've used the Sphere X data to determine this. And that's when they said, oh my gosh, we don't have water. We're not seeing water. Um,
Mhm.
and that's very concerning. They're not seeing water, because if they aren't seeing water, then it's not made out of ice. And if it's not made of ice, what is it made out of? And then they were able to
Mhm.
see, the only thing they were able to detect was carbon dioxide gas
Mhm.
being emitted from it. That's it. They weren't able to determine any other thing. And then James Webb Telescope here is mentioned also, and that was used to observe the Three Eye Atlas weeks ago, but the information isn't being released. And so some people in the media are asking why. And if you look into the James Webb Telescope, it is in one sense a public telescope, but in another it's only private results. And so you can sign up to use the telescope
Mhm.
with public money, but then you have control of the data, and they're not releasing it. And I don't know why. I don't know. And
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
scientist said that it can take 4 to 6 weeks for them to go through the data and to sort it all and to make conclusions. But I don't know if that's just an excuse or not. I don't know.
Yeah. So here he points out suspicious lack of coverage, and we know that the narrative has been pretty big on aliens over the last few years. So they're trying somehow to relate it to a spaceship, which even the main guy in Harvard said that there's a large percentage that it's actually a technology rather than a natural phenomena or a natural rock. So they're
Yeah.
trying their
So
best to relate to make it into some kind of an alien technology. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so the Harvard astronomer, his name is Avi Loeb, um,
Yep.
and he said that he's come up with his scale and he's named it after himself, the Avi Loeb scale from 1 to 10. And he said from a scale of 1 to 10, 1 is it's not alien technology, 10
Yep.
is that it is. He said it's a 4. He says
Yeah.
it's 40% chance, in his opinion, um, that it's somehow a piece of alien technology. And the reason why he's saying that is this, and I'm not saying that that's the conclusion that we should be making at this point, but the reason why he's saying that is that, first, the fact that they're not finding water, and it doesn't seem
Mm.
to be a comet. Secondly, because of its size, and thirdly, because of the light source. So when they looked at the telescope, they saw that a light source coming from the front. Have you read that, Ron? That is coming from
Yes.
towards the front
Yes.
of
We're
the
going to show
object?
that video. I'll try to bring it up now. But yeah, continue your explanation while I set up this video.
So he concludes, Avi Loeb concludes that either the object has to have a light source coming from itself, like from some kind of nuclear power, or the other option he gives is that it has to be of such a size that the flat size of the object needs to be large enough and has to have enough flat surface to be reflecting light, and then it
Mm.
would have to be quite enormous.
Okay, so I think this is the researcher that you're referring to. And he's interviewed here on News Nation. So we're going to watch some parts of it here. It's quite interesting.
Best photo we have of this object in the glow of light you describe. What makes you think that this could be nuclear powered?
Well, we don't have evidence for nuclear power, but we have evidence that there is no tail behind the object. So we see the object as red, and there was a suggestion maybe dust in front of it is making it red, but in fact there is not enough dust. There is very little dust in front of it based on the image. In fact, you can get all of this dust over a period of 6 months from a layer that is just 1 millimeter thick, and it could be just dirt evaporated from the surface. The one thing that was reported just a few days ago is from another observatory, Sphere X, that claims to have detected carbon dioxide, CO2, in a large region around this object. We don't know why that the same instrument didn't detect any water.
I just pause it here because it shows the speed and how fast it's traveling through space, and compared to the other objects in space, it's quite visible. I'll show that again.
Often, in the case of comets, you see water molecules, and that was
You can see
not
it there in the
detected.
center of the
And
screen.
so the mystery remains. Why don't we see a cometary tail? Why do we see glow ahead of the object, not behind it? If the object happens to be 20 kilometers in diameter, as is the case, if the reddening is just the surface of the object, from its brightness, we infer that it must be of order 20 kilometers, then it's very difficult to get such a giant rock out of the rocky material in interstellar space. We expect such a giant rock to be delivered once per 10,000 years or longer.
Okay, so he's saying it's very rare. It's once every 10,000 years that you get such a giant rock. Could be 20, I think you said kilometers long. So that's something that's very rare. And like you showed us before, the belt that it needs to go through, if it's an interstellar object, it needs to go through all of these rocky belts in order to get to the through to the solar system. So it's quite amazing that it's survived and it's still that big
And it had to have been ejected from its own solar system.
as
From
well.
wherever
Yeah.
part it comes, there's gravity, right? Wherever it's coming from, there's something that is the center of gravity for that solar system or whatever, wherever it's coming from, that's where it was once stable.
Mm,
And then it was ejected, so you would think
yep.
that if we have our solar systems and you have something similar, then you might have, that belt on the outside that's got icy things, and
Yep.
maybe from being on the outside, something made out of ice being large enough, maybe it gets
Mm,
ejected and it travels. I mean, this is over a really long time.
mm,
But something that's made of maybe rock, where would it have come from? Would it
yep.
have come from a planet, some other type of planet that collided with another planet, and now we've got this huge object hurling towards at us at an enormous speed?
Yeah, so before we go into the prophetic implications, obviously we're going to look at some Catholic prophecies and some alleged prophecies. But I want you to just go through some of these other slides just before we go into the prophetic significance. Do you want to comment on any of these slides that you've put together?
Yeah, so
Open-ended?
first I want to say, with this Avi Loeb, physicist, astronomer,
Yep.
he's really going towards this hostile alien threat, and I think we're going to be seeing that in the news
Yep.
within the next coming week. And if it comes out that this is in fact a very large, solid object, not made of ice, then I mean he's the one who's come out into the news and said, okay, well, I think that this has a large chance of being an alien spacecraft.
Mm,
And he said, well, either aliens are controlling it or somehow they're involved and they're going to be looking at us. He's got quite a theory, and to me, it's a little bit disturbing
yes.
because he's very much pushing that into the public light. And I mean, he's obviously somebody who's respected. He's
And it's something that the mainstream media is going to run with as, oh, this is an alien. And, it can be something that could be used to deceive people into believing this narrative. That
yes,
seems to be the direction that they're taking, is that even with the government disclosures and so on, that they're trying to convince people that, okay, it's just it's a common belief. It should be a common belief that aliens do exist, and they're just kind of pushing it. And this is going to be a big part of their propaganda, I feel.
yeah, I think that scientists, if you have scientists who are atheists, they have, aliens are in the realm of
Yep.
possibility, and strongly so. And I had seen a different interview with him, and he was basically asking NASA to wake up. So, he may have some other agenda as to why he's pushing
Yes.
this
Yeah. Mm.
for that theory and
Yeah, and it's
wanting people to believe that.
Exactly, and it's important to understand that we don't know everything. Like these scientists, especially atheistic scientists, think that that humans know a lot, but we really don't know what's out there in the universe and all of God's creations and how He's put things together. And there's so many unique things out there in the universe. And God is amazing and He's infinite and He's in His creation as well. So it's definitely an object coming towards us, but we don't know what it is. It's something that we've never seen before, and we say glory to God because it's something that we haven't seen. And God's creation is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, I had been watching a different type of channel that was more of a science channel talking about how if this object is coming from a different part of our galaxy, what a great scientific opportunity is for us to observe this rock, as long as it's not going to hit
Mm,
anything, right? To observe it and someday be able to probe something like that and maybe be able to have different substances that we don't have today that could be used for
sure.
goods. Um, and
And
and,
like
and
you
you
said,
have
it's a once in 10,000 year opportunity for us to probe something like this to see, to get some more knowledge about what there is out there in outside of our solar system.
the strange thing to me is that the Hubble telescope has only been doing this measurement for, I don't know, like 10 or 20 years. And this is only the third object that's come from, um,
Interstellar, yeah.
yeah, an interstellar traveling object, right? Um,
Mm,
it's the only third one. It's only the third one we have. So in statistics, they say that you need to have at least 30 to have a sample size. And when you look at the other two things that were looked at and measured, both of them were comets. And now we have a third thing, and it seems to be really an anomaly. And
mm.
now we
We
have
don't know, yeah.
and now we have this Harvard professor saying, look, this is a one, if this is what it is, if it's really this size and it's not ice, this is a 1 in 10,000. Is that what you said? 10,000 year
Yeah, one
event.
10,000 year event, yeah.
Um, And then you think about, okay, if it's a 1 in 10,000 year event and this thing is traveling at 130,000 miles per hour and it's 20 kilometers long, or on
Mhm.
its diameter, how much do they really know about? I mean, they have a um, projected travel path that they say it's going to take, but they have so much disagreement on what it's made of. You know,
Yeah,
how much does it weigh?
and I think they're
Um,
calling it Comet for lack of a better term to use to describe it. But it is an interstellar object, and some people are calling it an interstellar visitor, so it is a
an
visitor in some
interstellar visitor. But, I mean, you
in
can
some
imagine, let's
respect.
say the thing is made out of mercury. I mean, if you have no idea what the thing is
Yeah.
made out of and what its density is, I mean, that makes a huge difference, I would suppose. I mean, I'm not an astronomer, but on its path, how heavy it is, and then how fast it's traveling, and the force it takes for it to turn the corner and how close it's actually
Mm.
gonna get to a planet.
I wanna focus on this open-ended. It shows that the direction it's gonna take, it's gonna go around the sun, um, and it's got a high likelihood that it's going to collide with something. We've spoke
Well,
looking at this
NASA's saying
picture.
it does not have a high chance of colliding with anything.
So we don't know what it could collide with, but it could possibly collide with something. But some people are saying there's prophecies about a collision. We know that prophecy about the warning. There's from 5 different sources that you're going to probably talk about briefly. Of the warning is two astronomical bodies colliding, causing a great event on Earth where we could see this collision, and it causes obviously it has a spiritual effect as well later on, but it causes as if it's a cross or a crucifix to appear in the sky on. So this is something that prophecy watchers are looking at. Could this be possibly this collision that's going to take place? When is it? When would we be able to see it in our night skies?
So they're saying that the object at this point is 4 astronomical units away. So if you look at the distance between us and the sun
Yep,
and you multiply
you
that by
showed this
4,
one here,
so it's just
astronomical
outside.
units. Yep,
It's just outside the solar system, and
yep.
they say by like September and October, you're not going to be able to see it in the sky like with your naked eye.
Mm,
But
mm,
some people, some amateurs with good enough telescopes can get a glance of it
mm.
just shortly before it goes where we can't see it because of the sun's light.
Yep.
They will disappear. But then it's
There
supposed to
is
come back around in December.
there is one prophecy that I've put a video on my channel about. It's called Io Eros prophecy, and it's a Catholic prophecy apparently, and it's of a collision that's to take place with the Io, which is the moon of the Jupiter, which will cause a deflection of a comet. It's a comet that will collide, and that will bring about some effects as if a prelude to the warning. Will bring about some possibly disastrous effects on Earth. So just to put it out there, that's one prophecy, Io Eros prophecy. And then there's another prophecy from Saint Hildegard, I think, that there's a comet that will crash. There's been a few other prophecies as well. So, Father Oliveira talks about a comet that crashes or something that's seen in the sky. And there's also the Book of Revelation that talks about a comet. What's it called? The Wormwood prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a few different prophecies there about comets or asteroids colliding, some to Earth and some outside of the Earth, but will have an impact upon the Earth. So how could that take place? If it happens outside of the Earth's atmosphere, can it still have an impact in some way on the Earth?
Well, it wouldn't be happening outside of the solar system.
Yeah.
So you could have, I mean, we can see things in the night sky. There are times when we can see Mars. It's quite bright.
Mm.
And you can see some of the planets with your naked eye, depending on where they are in their orbits,
Mhm.
and the time of the year. I mean, and then the phase of the moon, it all kind of affects that. So if you had some huge collision happening around Mars or Jupiter, I think it's quite possible that if it was a large explosion, that it could be seen with the eye. So two of the prophecies I had seen, when I was in the 1990s, I remember reading a book on the chastisement with just ancient prophecies, and there were a number of prophecies about a comet. And then also, you have Sister Faustina who talks about some kind of collision of objects in the sky. And then we have the two suns prophecy. I don't know if those people were correct. There was a number of people who talked about it. Sometime
Yes.
it would seem like there were two suns in the sky for some reason. And then also on the day of the warning, other people saying that there would be like two stars colliding, or a
Yes.
comet and an asteroid. So I do think that those could all be visible, and I mean, it's quite possible if this thing is as huge as they're saying it is,
Mhm.
and if it's heavy, I mean, those are the two things you need, right? I mean, we need the size, the
Yep.
weight, and the velocity, to
Sure.
cause those three things you come together to be a problem, to be a
Exactly.
problem when it collides with something else.
Yes. I want to talk about another alleged prophet or a prophecy from a girl in Mexico. We've had a few videos on her last year on our channel. So she talks about a planet that will circle the Earth several times in the space of 3 minutes and then go away. And she says that there will be an object from space, a meteor or comet, that will enter our solar system, and 2 days later that will circle the Earth several times. Neither of these will hit the Earth, but get close enough to ignite what the girl calls the fire belt. So I don't know what the fire belt is.
Oh wow.
We are discerning. So yeah, that whether this fire belt is referring to the ring of fire or rim of fire on the Pacific Rim.
Mm.
The little girl said the big earthquake will occur and it will take place in Mexico first. So she's saying that this could impact the rim of fire or could have other impacts upon the earth, causing earthquakes. And we had Dr. Yagon previously that talked about that, how large bodies that come close to Earth can cause shifts in magnetic poles and can cause flooding, can cause earthquakes and so forth. So if this comes close enough, and that's probably one of the reasons why they're not wanting to show a lot about this object. It's obscure. The information hasn't been put out there. So there's a lot of speculation. Is that might be one of the reasons, is that if it comes so close enough to the Earth, it can have impacts in terms of magnetic pulls. So it can have a magnetic pull. So the Earth's magnetic field will be pulled towards the object if it's large enough. And if it's 20 kilometers, it's quite large for an astronomical body. And that can lead to, obviously, mega waves, tidal waves, earthquakes, effects to the Earth's, rotational and it's what do you call it? The tilt of the Earth in some way. So there's a lot of possibilities there.
So I was surprised. I know you and I had talked about this with Sister Lucia from Fatima, that after she died in 2017, the sisters in Coimbra finally published her private diary, and it came out in Spanish first, and then was published in English. And so Sister Lucia had her own private diary that she wrote, her own like reflections and thoughts in. And regarding the third secret of Fatima, they have in her handwriting. So this is not, this is not speculation. This is what was published by the Sisters of Coimbra. And Sister Lucia says that when she was doing her own reflection on, in the third secret of Fatima, where you have the angel crying out, penance, 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 and he's got the sword of fire. And she said that she came to, and this is in her writing, and it was published 2017 in Spanish, that she came to the understanding that St. Michael had his sword over the pole, the North Pole of the Earth, and that he was going to strike at the pole, and that when the pole was struck, that there would be great shifts of water, and the water would flood many lands. And so, I mean, you could have that activity done through, through St. Michael, but also through something natural where that came about. I mean, it's sometimes scary to talk about the chastisement, but it does seem like if you look at Fatima, and you look at Medjugorje, and you look at Our Lady of Akita, I just think that there's no denying that it's coming. And I know people will get scared and say, well, you're just being trying to strike fear into people, right?
Yes.
And that's not the point. I mean, at this point, Our Lady has warned us and warned us and warned us of conversion. And then if you look at a lot of the modern day seers, many of them are saying, keep your eyes on the sky, keep your eyes on the sky. I mean, obviously, our response will be one of prayer. But if we hear about things, we can't just stick our head in the sand either. Ron, what do you have to say?
Yes, that's right. We can't just stick our head. Well, it's a consensus of prophetic consensus. That's what Mark Mallet calls it. So there are a lot of, whether they're alleged prophets or or saints and approved prophecies, there are a lot of Catholic prophecies out there that are saying the same things, and that's what they're talking about. Definitely, that's part of it, is something that's happening in the sky, especially when it comes to the warning and other natural disasters that may occur related to comets and asteroids. I want to also read another passage that was given to me. It says this: "Dear children, I, as a mother who loves her children, I want you to pray. I want you to pray to my son, because these are difficult times. But faith does not end. 'Tis not the end of the world. 'Tis only a test. But do not fear, because I will always be with you, and you, my little Catholics, as I as a mother who never leaves her children, not even for an instant, and I do not take my eyes off you, because I am a mother, and I listen to your pleas." And then in another message, she says, "How will the triumph of the Immaculate Heart of Mary be?" Message from September 2020. "The triumph of our mother's heart is in every heart. That's why Our Lady's insistence that we read the book of the Queen to live in the divine will. Give me your will." When she says her heart will triumph, that is the kingdom. We must not wait for the warning. The little girl tells her mom, "Don't hate we must love. I think these are messages from the little girl. Sorry, that's my mistake. They were not from Louisa Picaretta. But anyway,
Mariana,
Yep.
Mariana from Medjugorje says something similar about not waiting to convert, and then she says, we talk about the things that are going to happen, and there's going to be these huge events, and like you said, that living in the way God wants us is to live in His will and to do His will in every instant for every day. And Mariana says we don't have control of our lives, and we don't know if maybe tomorrow is the last day of our life.
Mhm.
Irrespective of everything else that's going on. I mean, you don't know. People die of all sorts of things, a car
That's right.
accident or heart attack, and that we should always be ready. And then, like you said, that living for God isn't about a last minute change. It's about every day praying and living in His will and giving everything over to the Sacred Heart and the Immaculate Heart, Mary, and then just trusting. I do think that it is in many ways a difficult time to live in because, I mean, I know for me, even when I was in college in the 1990s, I knew about these prophecies.
Mhm.
But I always knew that there were certain things that had to happen before, before the big chastisement, right?
Yes.
But Father Livio says that just like life has a beginning and end, so does our life and the lives of people around us and the life of the world. There is a beginning and an end, and we sometimes want to live in denial of that, right? And think that we're going to live forever.
Mm.
But we know this chastisement is coming, and better to be in our shoes, to be prepared, to be going to confession, to be praying and to be ready, than for someone who's taken off guard about it.
Yes. Yes. We're being given so many warnings, and yeah, there's always room for us to improve in our spiritual life and to continue practicing and growing in our faith, practicing the sacraments, and obviously the 5 stones of Medjugorje. Um, was there anything that we need to mention before we wrap up?
No, I do think it's interesting that there have been several seers who have told us to keep our eyes on the
Mm,
skies,
yeah.
to watch for the signs. And our Lord has told us that at the end of times there will be signs in the sky, um, to let His elect know that His end is drawing near. Um, and we don't
Mhm.
need to be fearful, but to be aware. Um, And then also, I think the point you were talking about, with this possible alien deception, I think that's also important for people to be
Mhm.
aware of. I know Daniel O'Connor talks a lot about that, and
Yes. Yeah.
he has a great concern over how that could be used by the Antichrist to deceive many. And in the end, what's important is the salvation of our souls and to not be deceived. And do you have any plans of having Daniel O'Connor back on your channel?
Yes, well, Daniel's in the process of having, I think, his 6th baby, so he was
Oh,
just in
wow.
touch with me recently. So hopefully, when things settle down for him, he'll be back on
That's
hopefully soon.
awesome.
But yeah, keep him and his family in your prayers. And so that's what we want to share with you, everyone. I hope you found it interesting. There's been a lot of talk about it, and we thought we can share the news from a Catholic prophetic perspective. And thanks for doing the research again.
You're welcome.
Patricia, you've been a great help for us and a great asset for our channel. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ron.
All right. Till next time, everyone. God bless. And if there's anything else that comes up, we'll definitely keep you up to date in future episodes. Take care.